Ladies and gentlemen, this is J.R. Moore coming to you live from deep in the mountains of the Missouri Ozarks. On Friday, the 15th day of November, year of our Lord 2019, welcome to the John Moore Show. We begin our shows with something that Nancy Pelosi would not do and be honest about it. If she did do it, it would not be an honest statement on her part, Nancy Pelosi. We start our shows with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Purpose tip of the day, I encourage all of you to make sure that your team, your preparedness team, has a 2-year supply of food. I found out that some places in the government's now recommending a 2-week supply of food. Well, that's simply not enough. 2 years is what I now recommend for my consultation clients. Once you get that program underway of storing up that food, you'll find it does give you some peace of mind. We have patient waiting in the green room, my friend Tom Berryhill. Tom is a gentleman who began a quest, and it's been truly a quest, a lifelong quest, more than half a century ago, to become very knowledgeable in anything and everything to do with emergency survival communications, ham radio, electronics, radio frequency engineering, and we're going to be talking about emergency survival radio preparedness. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, John, on this cold day of the Ozarks. How are you?
Well, I am quite well, sir. How about yourself?
Real good, John. Real
good. Well, good. Tom, I mentioned that people should have a 2-year supply of food. And when it comes to emergency radio preparedness, they need backups there to make sure that they can communicate in the future. Backup batteries, backup chargers. Things break and things get lost, don't they?
Yes, they do, and it takes quite a bit of backup equipment to keep everything rolling. So the batteries are very important because so much of the equipment is battery operated nowadays, John. So extra batteries for especially portable radios, HTs, things like that. And what's not always talked about but really important are the tools needed, any types of tools required to maintain the equipment that you are using. So that's very important as well.
It is, absolutely. Well, these things, if you're not part of the ham community, it may be a bit confusing as to what you need, what to get, how much to get. I know one of the more things we use a lot of is this common black electrical tape, which I buy in rolls of 10 rolls at a time. You can't have too much black electrical tape, can you?
No, and you want the good stuff. Don't buy the cheap vinyl tape. The adhesive is bad. It just doesn't work good. I always use Scotch 33 or Scotch 88. One of those two works very well. And it's good for wrapping antenna connectors, things like that. We're trying to keep water out, keep the water out of that. So it's good to do that, and everybody should have some of that tape on hand. And again, absolutely, the tools, any types of tools that you need to make these connections and maintain the equipment is very important. To just have a small toolbox, and keep those hand tools separate from everything else, so they're always available.
Right. Well, I have a different kits for different purposes. In my electronics kit, I do keep those tools segregated in their own toolbox, separate and apart from the carpenter's tools, from the mechanic's tools, from the plumbing tools. It's good to have these tools segregated in their own toolbox and make sure that the tools get back in there once you're finished using them, right?
Yeah, that's very true, and I'm kind of smiling because I'm guilty of leaving tools out. And sometimes I'll admit this, John, I've already had to go buy a tool because I couldn't find the one that I had. So I have duplicates of several tools.
Well, one of the more common duplicates men end up with is screwdrivers. One of my neighbors, he went through his shop and really did a thorough cleaning and sorting, and he found he had about 30 screwdrivers once he went through everything. But that's not all that unusual, is it?
No, it's not. And actually, I have some of my favorite screwdrivers, just several, that I made myself, and they're special sizes, and they're really nice. And I really keep those, an eye on those so they don't get lost. But it's just good to have more than one screwdriver. You can't get by with just one screwdriver. I keep a few in the car, in the trunk of the car, just in case you have to work on something. And also, John, I like to keep a small digital voltmeter in the car. Keep a voltmeter with you. So in case you have to do any testing, if you have to check the car battery or somebody else's car battery or anything like that, it's just handy to have a few pieces of equipment with you while you're on the road.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things I carry in my Lincoln Town car is a Slim Jim, and I've been a neighborhood hero a couple of times when people hurriedly jump out of their vehicle, run to the Davisville General Store there and lock themselves out of their vehicle. Now, it's typically a 1 hour wait for somebody to come and perform a lockout service. So having that Slim Jim is helps some people in trouble. But getting back to tools, why don't we go through, if we could, just a list of the basic tools that you would recommend a beginning ham radio person would want to have in their toolbox?
Well, first of all, like we talked about, screwdrivers, and you would need a couple of flat blade screwdrivers, at least a smaller size, and then a larger size flat bit. And one of the combination screwdrivers is fine if you want to have that, where it has individual bits. Those are pretty nice because they have the Phillips sizes, and you need a real small Phillips, like a number 1 tip, and then a number 2 is probably about the most popular size, so that you can open up any piece of equipment. So many of the equipment manufacturers will use a Phillips type of screw to secure the case to the radio chassis itself. And sometimes you have to open that up to make adjustments, so you'll need those small screwdrivers. And also a Torx type of screwdriver is handy, as well as the square bits. So sometimes a multi-purpose screwdriver is handy to have. Then you want to have some needle nose pliers, smaller ones, and maybe a larger size for just a variety of things that you would have to tighten, small pieces of wire and things like that you have to hold maybe while soldering, and so on. And then some regular slip joint type pliers would be handy. Some channel locks, those are handy to have. And a set of wrenches or an adjustable wrench that's going to be real handy to have in that toolkit. And maybe a socket set, a small socket set with the common sizes that you might need. And you're going to want metric and regular inch or SAE type sockets, because so much of the equipment is made with metric fasteners. You go all over the world, John, everything's metric till you get here, and it's not.
Right.
So metric is very, very handy to have. And of course, the tape, we talked about tape a few minutes ago. Some good electrical tape is handy to have in there. And then we get into soldering. You're going to need a good soldering iron.
How can a person tell if it's a good one? How can a person tell if it's a good one?
Oh, boy, John, that is a good question. I've used so many different types of soldering irons over the years, but I use soldering stations. The ones I have are made by Weller. They make a very good type of soldering iron, as well as the soldering stations. Most of the work I do is at a bench, so it's with a soldering station, but you can use a just regular plug-in soldering iron, and I would get one about 40 watts or so. doesn't have to be real expensive, but don't get one of these real cheap things that's going to fall apart. Spend a few bucks, maybe $25 or $30 to get a nice one. And of course, you want some good solder. And I use Kester solder, and I use their 1544 series Kester solder. There's other solders that are just as good. Maybe there's some that's even better. But I use what's called a eutectic alloy. It's 6337, so 63% tin, 37% lead. A lot of people want to go with this no-lead solder, and that stuff's incredible to work with. You need higher heat to get the solder to flow. Some of it's pretty good, but personally, I don't like it. And I'll also tell you something else, that when you have a high tin content in the solder joints themselves, especially on a circuit board connection that's very close to other connections, if you use a high tin content solder, it will actually grow whiskers, microscopic tin whiskers, like an oxide from the tin will grow out of that connection and short out other adjacent connections. So that's something to pay attention to. The military doesn't want that type of solder in their equipment. They like the lead-based. The 6337 is the most popular. Another one that's close to it is 6040, and that just is the tin versus the lead content. And if you look at the melting temperatures of solder, the lowest melt temperature would be the 6337, and it's got a plastic range. So when a solder is molten, when it heats up, gets hot and melts, it goes from a liquid to a solid, but there's also a plastic range where it's not really solidified yet, but it's still somewhat mushy, and that's the plastic range. And a 6040 will give you more of that. A 6337 is the eutectic, and that goes from a liquid to a solid instantly. It cools as soon as it gets slightly cool. It's solid, and that's the.
And which one is that, Tom, that becomes solid so quickly?
63/37. So I use a Kester 44. They call what's 1544, I believe, is because I also buy the Flux, John, but it's Kester 44 series. And if you want the liquid flux, it's 1544. But I use the Kester products, and I use some real fine 15 thousandths diameter for very small connections, all the way up to 1/16 of an inch. And the most popular and easiest to work with for small circuit board repairs and things would be the 32nd of an inch, 0.032 inches. So it'll be marked 1/32, or it might be called 0.032. And then I use some 0.015. That's very fine, and that's for really small. I do a lot of circuit board work, so that's what I use the most. And then on larger connections like antenna connectors, larger wires, power cables, things like that, I use a 1/16 inch. So it'll be called 0.062 or 1/16 of an inch, and with all of these being the Kester 44 series.
Well, along the lines of the toolkit, something I came upon a few years ago is to take similar tools. So say you've got a number of small tools that are all pretty much the same but slightly different in size, and put them all in a Ziploc bag. Put all the electrical tape in a Ziploc bag. Put all similar size cable ties in a Ziploc bag. And that helps keep the toolbox organized when you do that, doesn't it?
It really does, and that's really handy to have, especially if you're taking some tools out into the field with you. Keep them bagged like that, and maybe even a separate small toolbox. That helps a lot. And then, John, I also have a lot of specialty tools they have one purpose and one purpose only, and I keep those segregated from everything else so they don't get damaged or lost. And sometimes you can leave your tools laying around if you're working outside and you forget about them, and what do you know, they get rusty. So you want to keep an eye on those tools and keep them away from moisture so that they don't rust, and check them once in a while. One thing you can do on a lot of steel tools that aren't plated, chrome plated or anything, you can just wipe them down with a little bit of floor wax. Believe it or not, that will keep them from getting any rust on them. And
Johnson's paste wax. Yeah.
Yeah,
I had a gunsmith tell me that 30 years ago. Johnson's paste wax. You want to protect metal.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, another thing, Tom, along these same lines, connectors. Ham radio equipment takes a variety of connectors, and I've got a couple of these plastic organizing boxes with the little dividers to keep these things organized and separate from each other. And it's been invaluable to have these parts, I guess you'd call it a parts box, with the plastic dividers and a clear lid that you can look down there without even having to open it, and then see what's inside, open it up, get what you need, close it back up, and keep everything separate and organized. Right, Tom?
Yes, that's true, and that works really good. And by the way, keeping different tools in those plastic Ziploc bags also keeps the moisture away from them, and that will help keep those tools from rusting. So that's a good thing also, John. Those bags, that's a great idea that you had there.
Right.
But yeah, you want to keep your tools in good condition, and any like the pliers and things, maybe a little drop of oil, a thin oil into the moving parts once in a while helps to keep them nice and smooth operating. I've seen needle nose pliers that were getting squeaky and kind of hard to move, so it's a good idea to put a little drop of oil in there once in a while.
That's
It doesn't take much.
Hold that thought. We got a break. The call number is 800-313-9443. Is thelibertyman.com. You go there, you'll see the beautiful graphics of people on a cruise, and we are going on a cruise. I'll be talking to Betsy Murphy today about our latest couple that's going with us, and there's still some cabins left. We will be headed out of Florida on Sunday the 9th of February, returning a week later, the 16th of February. What a great time to be away from the snow, the ice, the cold, the wet, the slop. Yeah, I'll be on the Caribbean cruise. And if you want to join us, just check out the details at my website at thelibertyman.com. When you're ready to go, just give our cruise director a call, Betsy Murphy. She'll be glad to accommodate you. Her number is 636-530-9502. I say again, 636-530-9502. We're talking about emergency survival communications, ham radio, with our friend Tom Berryhill. Tom, people may think they're saving money by getting a less expensive tool. I'll give you a good example. For quite a few years, maybe 15 plus years, I used an inexpensive entry-level crimper for crimp connections. And I'm a fairly strong guy, so it worked fine for me. And my wife, Dr. Moore, wanted to help me do some work with these tools, and she didn't have the hand strength to use the inexpensive one, so I went ahead and bought the professional-grade crimping tool. And the first time I took it out of the package and used it, I thought, where has this been all my life? The leverage provided by that professional-grade crimping tool was fantastic, plus it made a higher quality crimp than the little inexpensive $5 crimper I'd been using all those years. So, point being, if you think you're saving money by getting a cheap tool, you might be mistaken in terms of the quality of the work, the quality of the work product when you're finished, how long it takes, how much effort it takes. So in many cases, you're better off just going ahead from the get-go and getting a professional quality tool, aren't you, Tom?
Yes, you are. And the way I look at it, John, with any kind of tools or equipment, anything, save your money, do some research, save up the money to get the right equipment, the right tools from the start. And because the old saying is, instead of crying every time you use it, you only have to cry the first time when you buy it because it's so expensive. But it takes all the pain out of it by having the right equipment. And as far as crimping tools goes, and I think that's probably what you bought was a ratcheting type. You can adjust. Yeah, you adjust it, and it gives you the proper amount of power that you need to make that crimp. So they're identical. Every time you crimp a connector, you know it's right because the tool won't release until you give it the right amount of pressure, and that is so very important on a crimped connection. So you did the right thing, and I'm the same way with a lot of other tools, John. I have a lot of sheet metal equipment that I use to make the different pieces of equipment that I make, and I'll tell you what, I have used some of these cheap Chinese shears and things that you can buy on eBay and online, and they're just total junk next to the good stuff. But I've mainly used Diacro shears. They're very expensive, but they're very high quality, and they last forever. I mean, I have two of them, and the one I bought brand new maybe 30 years ago. It was difficult to spend that kind of money for something that just cuts a piece of sheet metal, but it's a fantastic tool to have. And the same with punching equipment. Now, if you're doing any kind of work with ham radio and you have to make different things out of metal and plastic, you might want one of these small hand punches. You can buy them at Harbor Freight. You can order them from Amazon. They're made in China, and they will punch holes all the way from 1/8 inch or even a 16th inch up to maybe 3/8 of an inch for the small hand punch. And then you can also get a larger one that will punch up to about 5/8 of an inch. And those are very handy to have. You can buy them at Harbor Freight, the cheaper ones, or you can spend more money and get the thing that those Chinese punches are modeled after. That's made by the Roper Whitney Company in Rockford, Illinois. They're still USA made. They are day and night difference as far as... And
you would punch through what kind of material with these punches?
Well, I punch through a lot of plastic materials with them, and also metal, sheet metal, thin sheet metal, aluminum, steel. You can punch a round hole. And some of these you can even get a square punch for them if you need to do square holes, things like that. And then I also use nibbling tools to punch through steel and plastic, aluminum, so on. And probably one of my favorite tools, hand tools in the shop, is and I don't know how to pronounce it. I don't know if it's Heinrich or Heinrich, but it's Heinrich. Heinrich, I think is how they pronounce it. It's a number 4A, 4 alpha. And it's a hand tool that's a small shear and a nibbler. It can nibble away at the metal. You can cut out little cutouts and things of any shape that you want. It's a very, very handy
tool. Hold that thought, Tom. We got a break. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
All right, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Friday the 15th of November. My website is thelibertyman.com. There was a contract pending on the hobby farm in my neighborhood, a hobby farm that's all set up and ready to go. Being for sale is a bit unusual, to say the least. The owners, they're friends of mine. They built this place to be their retirement home. They've since changed their mind. They have children and grandchildren a couple hundred miles away, so they're moving up to be near the grandchildren. And the hobby farm is for sale. Their driveway is about 3 miles from my driveway, which in our neighborhood is pretty close. So you might want to check that out. Also, my website, of course, if you have arthritis pain, if you have joint pain, back pain, you need an energy cleaner. Quite frankly, you do. If you already have an energy cleaner and you've got your life back and you do the things that you're passionate about, hunting, fishing, walking in the woods, golfing, tennis, whatever it might be, you probably know somebody who needs an energy cleaner because they have arthritis pain. Christmas is coming up. Great time to get an energy cleaner and a mattress pad for that special person that you'd like to help them get their life back, just like you got your life back. Details at my website at thelibertyman.com, where you can place your order using PayPal, MasterCard, Visa. You can send me a check. My address is at my website. Keep in mind I offer a 90-day money-back guarantee. If you've got an energy cleaner, you already know this. And you already know you didn't need the 90-day money-back guarantee. I also have a toll-free order line 24 hours a day to get yourself an energy cleaner, have it shipped to that special person who needs it. That toll-free order line is 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. Visiting with Tom Berryhill, we're talking about emergency survival communications. If you've got a question or comment, just give us a call at 800-313-9443. Well, Tom, with some things, going back to screwdrivers, I'll end up with multiple screwdrivers, sometimes 2 or 3 exactly the same, but I keep them segregated. One in my mechanical toolbox, one in my electronics toolbox, and that's okay. It's okay to have multiple tools because it ends up saving you time and keeps you better organized, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. It really does. And you're going to need several copies of certain tools, especially screwdrivers. They get laying around your work area, and you go to reach for one, and it's not available. So you might want to have the common size is several of each, and keep a set in the car that you never know when you're going to need that. And then there's certain hand tools that are specific for a task. You might want to have at least one of those and keep it in a safe spot so you don't lose it. And I think you just kind of build it as you go. It can take years. I have tools that I've purchased 45 years ago and still use them. And one of those is a crimping tool, John. It's a Thomas & Betts crimping tool for insulated and non-insulated connectors, and that is one of the nicest tools. And it's getting a little worn, but it still works good, and that's a handy tool to have.
It is. Well, let's talk a little bit about the pluses and minuses for either soldering connections or crimping connections. And there's going to be a plus column and a minus column for both sides, isn't there?
Yes, there is. And on wire connectors, many times if there's any kind of vibration present, it's much better to crimp that connection rather than solder it. Because what happens is if some people will crimp and solder a connection. I've done that. It's just to ensure that there is a very good electrical connection. Just a little bit of solder in there can help. But if there's any kind of vibration, I can assure you that in time that wire will break right where the flexible wire meets the soldered connection. It will finally fracture, and it's called, what happens, John, is it's called work hardening. When you take a metal, you take a solid piece of copper wire or steel wire, steel's even worse, but start to bend it back and forth. What you're doing is exaggerating what that vibration would cause, and you're doing it rapidly.
Right.
You bend that wire back and forth, the wire actually heats up, and then it will finally just fracture, and that's called work hardening. Every time that wire is stressed, it gets harder and harder, and it finally cracks. So that's what happens with a soldered connection. And again, though, crimped is better. And if you look at military equipment, they use a lot of crimped connections and no solder at all. And that is one of the best for if there's any kind of vibration. And also you might want to use a high-quality connector if you suspect that there might be a lot of vibration or any type of corrosive atmosphere. You might want to put shrink tubing over that wiring to keep the any kind of corrosion from forming. And also a very good quality crimp connector they may mention in their specifications that it's gas tight. So what that means is that crimp connection is so tight that oxygen can't even get in there or any other type of gas that might cause corrosion. You could possibly get some corrosion on the surface of the metals, but where that actual electrical connection is crimped and made, no gas will ever get in there, no oxygen, no hydrogen sulfide, anything that will mess it up.
So let's say you're going to crimp two wires together, and you want to do a shrink tubing on it. You put the shrink tubing on first, obviously, and about extending how long on each side of the crimp connector would you have the shrink tubing? Would be, let's say, for example, an inch on either side?
Yeah, I think an inch. You could kind of gauge it from looking at it. If it's, you don't need many inches, but an inch on each side. Even a half inch in some cases if it's a very small connection. Of course, on larger connections, you might want to go a little farther. And as far as shrink tubing goes, there's various types available. Some of them have a material inside that actually forms like a liquid glue when it gets hot, and it bonds everything together, and that keeps water and moisture out of that connection. So now, those types of shrink tubing cost a little bit more, but they can be very, very handy to make antenna connections that are going to be outside. That will help to keep rain and any types of interfering gases or pollution. Yeah, keep it out of there.
And then what would be the source of heat to get the shrink tubing to work? What would be a good source of heat, or maybe more than one?
Out in the field, you can even use a match if you have to. Just do it carefully. You can't get this stuff too hot.
Well, you have to hold it you would hold the match underneath the shrink tubing far enough
so the heat rises.
The heat would rise, but not so close it actually melts the shrink tubing.
Yes, the flame itself doesn't have to touch it. And, of course, the best way is a heat gun. And then when you use a heat gun, you have to move it around to get all sides of that piece of heat tube, shrink tubing, and you can put a deflector on the end of it. Most heat guns will come with a deflector that has it keeps that, forms like a round area that you can put the whole piece of shrink tubing and wire and everything in there, and it spreads that heat around, and it will evenly heat that all the way around, and then you can just take the piece out of there and do the next one if you're doing any kind of production. It works quite well. So it's good to have a heat gun. That's the best
Now,
way. That's what I use.
Going back to the connectors, I like to use dielectric grease on these connectors before I make the connection, to have the inside of the connection have dielectric grease in there. What do you think about that, sir?
I think that's a good idea on certain applications. Personally, I never use it. I never have, John, but I know it's good stuff. It is. And a lot of manufacturers actually specify that you use that dielectric grease on the connections using their connectors or their electronic equipment. So you have to go on their recommendation, and a lot of technicians will use the dielectric grease. It is good. It is good to use. I personally don't. For whatever reason, I just don't. It's I could probably start using it. One thing I would pay close attention to is on antenna connectors. If you get that grease down in there, I don't know if that would affect the impedance of the connection. I don't know. The only way you would ever know is to run some sort of a network analyzer or an antenna analyzer and see if it's caused any disruptions with the reflected power, things like that on a coaxial cable. So, but on the threads themselves, that dielectric grease would be really good on the threads where you screw the whole thing together. That would be really good to keep that from tarnishing and maybe losing a good connection. So at least there, and then you would want to put some of that antenna goop over it. It's there's all different types. You can get in a tape form that wraps around and it forms itself, molds itself right to that connector, and then put some good electrical tape over that, which would be like the Scotch 33.
Right.
And
Well,
sometimes
that's what I do. I use the black sticky tape, goopy tape, and it's almost like asphalt. I mean, it's rubber. Rubber might be a better, or modeling clay might even be a better description. Get it warmed up with the heat of your hand, and it just forms up and almost melts around to become one solid piece of rubbery material, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And if you are working on an antenna that's going to be outside in the elements and you want it to last for many years, you could put that rubbery material over it, get that on there, mold it to the connector, maybe put some Scotch 33, couple of layers over that to keep that in place, and then finally slide a piece of shrink tubing, a large piece of shrink tubing that has that goop in it that forms a watertight connection, and then shrink that down over that whole monstrosity at that point, because that's what it's going to look like.
It gets to be pretty large. You'll almost double the size of the diameter of the connector. Tom, we got a caller on hold here. We got Joe in Oklahoma. Good morning, Joe.
Yes. Speaking of your dielectric grease, I think that everyone should have a tube of dielectric grease in their house, in their shop, everywhere, because I never even put in a duplex outlet, replace one without coating the wires with dielectric grease. That's how good connections are how you keep from burning things up. Another thing that works real good on grounds is nickel-based anti-seize compound, especially out in an outdoor environment. If you use that, even on your battery terminals, it won't corrode. Works real good. That's all I've got to say.
Okay.
Use dielectric grease everywhere.
Right. Thank you, sir. Well, we got a big fan of dielectric grease here, don't we?
Yes, we do, and he's correct. And that's where when you have making connections, and he mentioned a duplex outlet, that's where so many people get in trouble, John.
So people may be wondering, what is a duplex outlet?
What's your regular outlet? Regular electrical outlet, 120-volt outlet, where you plug a lamp
in your house. A regular outlet in your house.
In the wall, just a wall outlet.
Right.
And speaking of those, they have those duplex outlets, they have the type where you strip the wire. There's a strip gauge right on the outlet, shows you how far back to strip the insulation, and you can poke those wires right in the back, and there's a spring tab in there that locks the wires in, or you can use the screw connections. I always use the screw connections. I don't like those types that just slide the wire.
You mean you don't trust them?
Yeah. I don't like them, I don't trust them, and I don't use them.
I use the screw connections too, Tom. I like the screw connections. You wrap that wire around that post and screw that down and good and tight. It's not going anywhere for the next 100 years.
Yes, and then that's where probably a little dielectric grease would help too in those connections, like Joe that called in and said.
Right.
You know, John, a good thing to do once in a while is if you're running a lot of current, like one of these small electric heaters you hear about this time of year, houses catching on fire, and it was a room space heater. And one thing that you should really do is when you're powering something like a heater or something that's larger, a larger appliance is going to draw a lot of current. And I mean large current draw, not physical size. A small electric heater will draw more current than your refrigerator. So plug in an electric heater, something draws a lot of current, and take one of those infrared thermometers where it just points a little laser dot and reads the temperature, and then get in closer, maybe a foot away from that outlet. Let that thing run for a while, and then put that on that outlet and all around it, and just see what the temperature rise is. If it's higher than room temperature, that's okay. It'll raise a little bit, because you got some resistance in that connection. You're drawing a lot of current, and the plug itself going into the socket will actually heat up some. If the socket is worn badly, or those screw connections aren't tight, you'll get a lot of heat. And I've seen those things get so hot they're ready to catch on fire, which is exactly what happens and burns down homes.
Right.
So you want, and if you, as a matter of fact, if you plug in a space heater like that, and you touch the cord, say halfway between the wall and the unit, the cord is cool. Sometimes it might be a little warm, but usually room temperature. And after running that thing for a while, unplug it from the wall and touch the blades of that plug, and you'll be amazed at how warm they get, because that's the voltage drop there, and anytime you have voltage drop, you're going to dissipate some power because you don't have a really good tight connection.
I just found out yesterday, a mutual friend of ours, I won't mention his name, multimillionaire, he had a house fire in the last year or so and had to leap out his bedroom window to save his life. So fires can happen at any time, any place. We got a caller on hold here, Tom. We got Mike in Texas. Good morning. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, gentlemen. First-time caller. John, very much enjoyed your show. Thank you for all the shared wisdom. I have a question regarding, I'm looking to order an energy cleaner, so very excited about that. And I was just wondering if the secure shopping cart link on your website is down or not. Seems to be.
No, here's what will happen. People that own the shopping cart, they sold it a year and a half ago. We've had issues ever since. So you'll get a message that the order did not go through because it didn't, and I manually process the order myself. So disregard the order, the notice that didn't go through, and I will take care of it and process it, and everything will be fine.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you. I had another question, too, as far as what do you recommend for a travel pad?
Well, I offer a travel pad there for sale at my website. It's 12 by 24 inches, and I've got just a bunch of them in stock ready to go.
Okay. I wasn't sure if that was the size you recommended or not. Very good. Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Have a good day.
Thanks for the call, Mike. Appreciate it. All right, we are back. Let's jump. We're back. We're almost out of time this hour. We got a couple of callers. First, Dan Soderfield. Good morning, Dan.
You talked about duplex receptacles, and in my time of doing repair and remodeling work in houses, I found a lot of duplex receptacles that had just basically fallen apart. The little 79, 89 cent ones rated at 15 amps aren't worth putting in, as far as I'm concerned. They don't have any structural integrity to them other than the plastic they're molded out of. So I always replaced them with a 20 amp receptacle. It's got a steel bar running down the back. If you break one open and look in either one of them, there's a whole different grade of or thickness of metal where the prongs for the plug-in actually get gripped inside. That 20 amp receptacle is built like a tank compared to the little 15 amp.
That's good information there, Dan. It really is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
It makes a big difference in the longevity. I've replaced a bunch of those, especially in a kitchen where people are plugging in waffle irons and coffee pots and stuff.
Plug in, unplug. Right.
And that's right. And Dan is 100% correct, especially in the kitchens, because that's what will eventually, from the heat buildup, will disintegrate that plastic. And I'll tell a quick story about what happened to me. I came into my electronics facility years ago, John. You remember they're in Fenton, Missouri, and I went in there one Saturday, and I went into, for whatever reason, I went into one particular room, and I leaned up against the wall for whatever reason, and that wall was hot. And I couldn't believe it, and there was even a little bit of smell, and it turned out the duplex receptacle that was in that wall...
on the other side?
Feet, No, it was in the same room, Dan, but for whatever reason, I had to get something off a shelf, and I leaned up against that wall. There was nothing plugged into it, but it had been improperly installed. The wire was loose, and I guess from using it, the plastic actually started to carbonize, turned into carbon somewhat from heating up, and it started becoming conductive, and that outlet was drawing power, enough power to get so hot it was nearly ready to set the wall on fire. So I tore that thing out of there, disconnected it, capped those wires off, and then came back in Monday with the proper things to put it back together, and probably saved us from having a major fire in that facility.
Shut down the circuit breaker and disconnect everything with the circuit breaker, Tom?
No, it didn't, because it was drawing enough. There was enough resistance there to draw enough power to heat that whole wall up, and I mean hot. That thing was so hot when I was taking it out of the wall, I did have to turn the breaker off and let it cool down for a while. It was too hot to handle, and there was nothing plugged into it. The plastic itself had become conductive, somewhat of a semiconductor, like a big resistor, because it turned into carbon. And I wish I still had that connector. I showed that to several electricians that were just amazed, and they had never seen anything like it either. There was nothing
your
plugged
angels
in.
were with you that morning.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Dan, thank you. We'll try to get this
Thank
last
you.
caller
Thank
in
you, buddy.
real quick.
Bye-bye.
Joe in Oklahoma. Go ahead, sir. Well, we're out of time.
Oh,
Joe, we are out of time. I apologize.
hey, just one quick comment. Duplexes, aluminum wiring in your house. Mobile homes and manufactured houses typically have aluminum wiring on them. Aluminum wiring is very prone.
It's been illegal for decades. No more aluminum in these mobile homes. It's illegal. Okay, that's it for this hour. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Joe. We got a top of the hour break. Second hour on Friday, the 15th day of November. The perfect tip of the day is to encourage everybody to make sure your team, all your team members, have a 2-year supply of food. That would just be a really smart thing to do. You don't need to do it all at once. Just get started. If you're on a limited budget, beans and rice. If you can afford it, then you get other things. Make sure you got plenty of spices. That would be a good thing. Spices are relatively inexpensive, and you don't need a whole lot to go a long way. That's your prepper tip of the day. We have a patient waiting in the green room, my friend, Dr. Lynn Wilbert. Dr. Lynn Wilbert is my personal physician, and we're going to be talking about health-related matters. If you want to become a client of Dr. Wilbert, here's his telephone number. That's 314-495-6480. Good morning, Doctor.
Greetings, J.R. Moore. What a pleasure to be on again.
Good to have you back. As we got in 6 weeks, it will be 2020, sir. How about that?
It's hard to imagine. We're closer to 2020 than we are Labor Day. And Labor Day was just last week. Or it seems like it.
It seems like it, don't it?
Yes.
It seems like it. Well, sir, this is a time here people start considering their resolutions for the new year. Almost always those resolutions have some connection to health or weight loss or both, don't they, sir?
Typically, it does. However, it's hard to implement new behavior patterns instantly. So we have party and food and friends and family and stress and pressure and repeat stories from many years ago when you're supposed to be having fun and supposed to be peace on earth and love and joy and all that. And after that tumultuous event, now you're going to engage in New Year resolutions. Nah, it's not going to happen. That's why most of them fail. A lot of people talk about it takes 31 days or 30 days or whatever it is to implement a new habit, to change one to another. Well, it doesn't really take that much. It takes you being consistent if you drop off one day. So let's say you make a New Year's resolution to do this, and you get started, the next day you don't. Well, you can't go 2 days. You can't go 2 days without making a significant change. And if you do that and stay consistent, then it won't take you 30 days to change. But the problem that I see, Tom Moore, is that we start too late to implement those changes. I start mine, I don't call them New Year's resolutions, I just call them goals for 2020. And I start mine 3 months ahead, October, November, December. So by the time January comes, I have a good running start of where I want to go. It's not an instantaneous change. See, change doesn't take long. Change is a change of mind. Change is a change of intention. That takes a millisecond. But to change your pattern of behavior takes lots of repetition. And we are creatures of habit. So the hardest thing for people to do is to change something that they enjoy doing. Something they enjoy doing. Let's say a New Year's resolution would be, I'm going to quit smoking. Okay, why do you smoke? Well, I don't know. Well, why do you smoke? Well, one thing, the drug and cigarettes, it is physically addicting. And the other, it's outright cancer causing. So why do you smoke? Well, because you enjoy it.
Right.
You enjoy it.
Well, that's why they started smoking. That's why they started smoking. They may be past that if it's just become an addiction.
Yes. First time I lit up a cigarette, I almost threw up. I was so dizzy, and I did it again. I don't know what I was thinking about. I was in high school. But I quit smoking August the 17th, 1977, and cigarettes had just went up to 50 cents a pack. Depending on where you go in the country, you can get them for $12 a pack now.
Right.
But it's and I tell my clients that want to quit smoking, and I say, well, you don't want to quit smoking. It's a contradiction. You don't want to quit something you enjoy. It's very difficult. So you set an intention. You be thankful. The more thankful you are, the more things you have to be thankful for. If you're thankful you woke up this morning, you have another one. Ed Foreman, he's a motivational speaker. He's probably still out there somewhere, 100 years old. I haven't heard about him lately, but he'd be on stage, and I know he was in his 80s, and he would do the worm, that wiggly move on the ground where you move forward. Yeah, he would do the worm, and one of his sayings was, some people wake up in the morning, and they go, good morning, God. And other people wake up in the morning and go, good God, it's morning.
Right.
So if you wake up and feel that way the second way, go back to sleep and wake up again. Because the reality of the fact is that if you go to sleep and don't wake up, you as an individual will not remember being here. Everyone else does remember you being here, but you don't. I heard Goldie Hawn. She's an actress, hasn't done anything for a while, but she's one of my favorite people. An interviewer said, Goldie, you're so happy and so chipper and so, just vibrant all the time. How do you stay happy?
Right.
And she says, well, when I wake up in the morning, I am reborn. So I celebrate my rebirth. And I said to myself, I like that. So when I wake up in the morning, I'm reborn. Every day, and I'm thankful for it. And again, the reason why I know this, David Hawkins, Ph.D., he wrote a book called Power versus Force. And he uses a sophisticated measuring device. It measures the energy of human emotions. And it's called a SQUID, Superquantum Interference Measuring Device. It's probably 20 or 30 of them in the world today. But you can measure the energy of human emotion. The most abundant human emotion was love. I mean, it's everywhere. Everywhere. That makes sense to me. The most intense on the Richter scale, so to speak, the most intense, the highest intensity is thankful and grateful. And when I read that, I said, okay, love, joy, peace, thankful, grateful, those are the resonating energies that I set the intentions for myself every day. Every day. The people knew the devastating consequences of emotional upsetness, which humans weren't supposed to do. We don't have systems designed to handle the poison from emotional upsetness. We have systems to keep us alive: cardiorespiratory system, cardiovascular system, circulatory system, endocrine system, lymphatic. I mean, I can go on and on. These are systems that are part of the perfect design to respond perfectly to what life was intended to be. What life was intended to be. Humans weren't designed to have less than positive emotions. And we're the only creatures that have, quote-unquote, free will, meaning that we can think about what we want to think about. Oh, yes, nobody tells you what to think. They may attempt to influence your thinking, but the decision to think one way or another rests with the individual. And so I came up with a phrase: think about what you're thinking about while you're thinking about it. And if it doesn't make you feel good, just simply change the thought. I mentioned before, all emotions are preceded by feelings. All feelings are preceded by thoughts. Now, that process may happen quite rapidly. Well, yeah, but that's how it works. So in order to control your emotions, you must control your thoughts. And you must control your feelings. And with that being said, how many people practice? We talked about this a show or two ago. Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. Perfect practice makes permanent. And if you're practicing perfectly what you would love to achieve, like if you run off track in a forward focus, one of those low to the ground cars, if you run off track, like hills and valleys in the country, off road where you need a tall truck with big shocks and big tires, that's an off-road vehicle. A Ford Focus isn't. Some people driving a Ford Focus get emotionally upset, and they tend to dwell there for whatever reason. Well, the reason is they don't know the devastating destruction that they're creating inside their body in terms of their physiology. They don't know. They don't have an idea until it shows up. Some people run off track to the road of emotional upsetness, and they pick up speed. Can you imagine what happens? A couple hills and valleys in the Ford Focus, something's going to break loose. It's not an off-road car. So if you happen to get off-road for any reason, emotionally, those, they have them all over the place. Now, this is a brilliant idea, whatever civil engineer came up with this. Those little corrugated bumps on the side of the road or either side of the road.
Right. Rumbles. I call them rumble strips. Rumble strips.
Yes, yes. You run one of those and see if it gets your attention.
Oh, yes.
Don't have anybody in the car when you run over one, they look at you, you okay? You want me to drive?
Right.
It's a warning that you're ready to run off the road. That was a brilliant idea.
Well, they have them down the middle also, and it's a really a life-saving thing that they've done there, and I really applaud them for doing so.
Yes, that was absolutely a brilliant move. I remember, I've been in St. Louis most of my life. I remember Highway 4064. It only had a wire median. It didn't have the concrete median dividing east and west like it has today, and many people were killed on that highway. So yes, the civil engineers have done a great job trying to keep us safe on the highways. But back to running off road. See, some people are going to experience hanging out a day or two a week with relatives, friends and relatives that they haven't seen before. Or not before, but haven't seen in a long time. And inevitably, someone will bring up a past tense nonsense experience. And I call it past tense nonsense because if it was a past tense experience and you lived through it, why would you dwell on the less than positive feelings and emotions of that experience? If you lived through the experience, you learned. And if you learned, and then you're still here, you can learn. And most people should love learning. I love learning. So I assign any experience that I wish I had skipped over, the one that took my heart, threw it on the floor, stomped on it, pummeled it, gave it back to me, and my heart was hurt, or so I perceived that my heart was hurt. The heart is the seat of love. It is incapable of being hurt. It cannot be hurt. It's an illusion. It's an illusion. And here's why. A long time ago when you were a little infant, not infant, maybe child, probably was, maybe not 2 yet. And children are really good at expressing their feelings. And they just did not like what happened to them. And it hurt their feelings, and they were sulking, and all of a sudden, the mind says to the heart, because children live from their heart. They wear their feelings on their shoulders. There's no feeling, no filters, plenty of feelings, no filters. They let you know, unlike adults who develop filters to hide what they're really feeling. One day the mind says, hey, heart, you don't have to experience that hurt. Let me drive the bus of life, and you just sit back and ride. And now your mind starts driving the bus of life. And it's your mind, your conscious, judgmental mind, that starts to drive your life. And then you, unfortunately, some never recover. Some never live from their heart. Some never learn to expose their heart and show love and show caring and compassion for the heartfelt feeling. Some people are reluctant to do that because they think, they perceive, it's been their past experience that they perceive that person really hurt my feelings and hurt my heart. Well, that's impossible to happen unless you let them. You've heard this expression before. That person got on my last nerve. What about the gazillion before that? Why did you let them get on the first nerve? It's your choice. Your choice. You become upset because you choose to be. You choose to be. Now, just because you observe a situation doesn't mean you have to process it the way you observed it. A case in point is there's an accident and 5 witnesses, and the story is different with all 5. So their observation, their perception was different. So if you observe a situation that's less than positive, there's a moment in time where you get to process it. You get to evaluate it before you store it as a memory. So why would you store the experience, which is less than positive, as a less than positive experience? Oh, my goodness. So you can flip it. You can look at that experience, and you can look at the situation, the moment, whatever it is, and before you process it, you say to yourself, you know what? I would live my life a little differently. And this is what I would do if I were in that situation. And so now you process a potentially harmful memory, you processed it as beneficial. And very few people learn those mental gymnastics. John Moore, I teach my clients that it's all about minding. Think about what you're thinking about while you're thinking about it. And contrary to a popular opinion and belief, you only have one thought at a time. Only one thought. Now, they may come in rapid-fire succession, but it's still a single thought at a time. And so if you can focus on the thought of the moment and then change it to positive, then you will learn to recognize that less than positive thought that comes.
Hold that thought, Doctor. Hold that thought. We got a break. The call number is 800-313-9443. We'll be right back.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcast. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. J.R. Moore here on Friday. It is Friday the 15th of November. My website is thelibertyman.com. You'll see beautiful graphics there in the top left-hand corner of my home page. Photographs of couples that are enjoying a romantic Caribbean cruise. That's what we're doing. We're going on a Caribbean cruise. There's still cabins left if you want to join us on the John Moore Patriot Symposium Cruise. Check out the details at my website. You can call our cruise director, Betsy Murphy, and get the details. Our cruise director's telephone number, Betsy Murphy, 636-530-9502. I say again, 636-530-9502. I'm talking to her today about getting the reservation squared away for our latest couple that's going with us. Visiting with Dr. Lynn Wilbert, my personal physician. And if you want to tune in and listen to us, what you're doing right now, that's great. If you want to have a private consultation with Dr. Wilbert, well, then you need to give him a phone call at 314-495-6480. Doctor, an ongoing issue that Dr. Moore, my wife, and I had for years was her belief that I could make her feel a certain way. In fact, she encouraged me to read a book written by a survivor of the Holocaust who made it very clear that it was his choice how he responded and how he felt given any situation that he experienced in the concentration camp. And what you're saying this morning is very important for people to understand that they have the choice of how they respond and how they feel given whatever situation they're put into, don't they, sir?
That is absolutely correct. We have choices in every area of our lives. Every area, there's a choice. And so based on your upbringing, your nurturing, what you believe to be true, that is the choice that you would make. And see, that's not always the best choice for you. You just didn't know it. there was a saying, what you don't know can't hurt you. But that's never been true. It's never been true. What you don't know can take you out so fast that you don't even know that you're gone. It took you out so fast. So it's important to be open-minded, or at least willing to be consider new information. And that's pretty much how I've been most all of my life. If you tell me something and I don't know it to be true, I will not automatically dismiss it as untrue. I will suspend it, ponder on it, research it, implement it, see if it works for me, and then make a determination.
Right.
And so, but if a blatant, outright non-truth, it's easy for me to dismiss that. And so, just...
Yeah, yes. Well, give an example here. They no longer do it because they're not allowed to. The drill sergeants in the Army would order a soldier to do 20 push-ups as a mild form of punishment. So when I was told to do my 20 push-ups because I didn't polish my belt buckle polished enough, I would smile and say, "Yes, drill sergeant," and the last 5 of the 20 I would do airborne push-ups where you push yourself up high enough to clap your hands and get back down and get up smiling with a very slight smile because I didn't want to get in trouble again. But so what one man will look at as punishment, I look at as kind of a fun thing to do. Same exact activity, but a different response, correct?
Exactly. And again, it's the response. It's how you respond to a particular moment. No person on the planet can make you upset. No person on the planet can make you angry. It is a perception. And I think I shared this. It's the Dr. Alan, Alan Watkins, Watkins, Alan Watkins. He's an Englishman. He's a medical doctor, immunologist, cardiologist, and then something else on his resume. He's been to school a long time. And so his company teaches how CEOs can be brilliant every day, how to be brilliant every day. And in fact, he's on YouTube. He's got a TEDx Part 1 and Part 2 videos. I encourage everyone to take a look at it because he hooks a volunteer from the audience. Say, who's good at math? Raise your hand. Come on up. Okay, so you're good at math. And he uses a heart rate variability machine. Heart rate variability. Very, very sophisticated machine that costs you about $6,000 and you got it done in the hospital. That's why they don't usually do them unless it's absolutely necessary. But heart rate variability test will determine your sympathetic variables, meaning there's parasympathetic, slow you down part of the nerve system, there's sympathetic, speed you up part of the nerve system, and it takes about 5 minutes to do, and over time they can get an average of your sympathetic, parasympathetic pattern, and within single-digit percentage points predict your possibility of having a heart attack.
Hold that thought, Doctor. Good. Hold that thought. We got a break. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
All right, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Friday, the 15th of November. This time of year, people do take more time to watch movies and TV shows. And just keep in mind, our project is, I couldn't possibly do this by myself. Our project of locating images of continents with different coastlines, new coastlines, when you're watching a movie or a TV show. And it's on the left side of my homepage where it says new coastlines in the media. We have more than 24 movies and TV shows showing continents with different coastlines, new coastlines. If you find one, get that screen capture to me. You get your choice of any of my 6 DVDs as a thank you. It's a fun project. We need to keep moving it forward. Also on our website, energy cleaners. If you have arthritis pain, you need an energy cleaner. You already have an energy cleaner. You probably have a friend, somebody you care about who has arthritis issues. Get them an energy cleaner and a mattress pad for a gift. What a wonderful Christmas gift, as opposed to some silly plastic trinket that'll be broken in a few months. So it would be a really great thing. It would help your loved one, that very special person in your life, to get their life back. The energy cleaner and a mattress pad at my website at thelibertyman.com. We can use PayPal, MasterCard, Visa. We had an order during the last hour for an energy cleaner and a queen-size pad on PayPal. You can also call my toll-free line to place your order for your energy cleaner, your mattress pad, the travel pad to go with it at 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. Visiting with Dr. Lynn Wilbert. If you need a private consultation, you want to get started with them on the road to health and wellness and productivity, all the fun things we want to do, give Dr. Wilbert a call. His telephone number is 314-495-6480. Doctor, that was a good point you were making just before the break about making this determination using these protocols. Is that something that, how would a person know that they should be doing that? Is there some things that would give them a sign they need to be doing that?
Oh, yes. Your body. Your body. See, when I'm sure everyone at some point in time has gotten angry at something. And did you notice how good you felt after being angry? No, it didn't make you feel good at all. In fact, it took you much longer time to calm down than it did for you to get upset. You went to emotional upsetness instantly. And it takes you hour, 2 hours. Later on in the day, you may still be talking about it, how that person got on your last nerves, how I was so angry I couldn't see straight. Yeah, many people have said that. It is true. It is true. I was so mad I couldn't finish my meal. Okay, it's true. You never say why. You never ask the question why. I had this conversation this week with a client that medical doctor was attempting to prescribe drugs. Actually, he did. He said, well, you're pre-diabetic. And I go, what did he tell you what that means? He says, yes, that, with my current lifestyle, I could become a diabetic. Okay, did he say anything about your lifestyle, how to improve? No, he just gave me some medication to keep me from getting diabetes.
Right.
And I said, what kind of medication? Well, it's a very low dose of a diabetic drug or whatever it was. And I'm going, so you're going to take a drug that treats diabetes to keep you from getting diabetes? I say, Ms. Klein, I'm pre-diabetic too. In fact, I'm pre-hypertensive. I'm pre-death. Everybody's pre-something before they actually got to where they needed to take drugs or have a condition. You're always pre. The last step you took off that cliff, that was a pre-step before you fell to your death.
Well, yeah. Doctor, let's back up a bit. You touched on something that people need to understand. Now, diabetes is not a disease. It's a condition. If you hit your thumb with a hammer, that's not a disease. That's a condition, a consequence of hitting your thumb with a hammer. Diabetes is not a disease. It's a consequence of two things: what you eat and what you don't eat. Is that a fairly accurate statement?
That is an accurate and profound statement, John, because, again, the premise of the body, the design of the body, is a perfect design. There was no recall of the human, like Toyota and Ford and some of the manufacturers have recalled and improved on the design of the automobile. Well, our Creator didn't do that. So from the original design to us today, it's still a perfect responding, perfect stimulus response organism.
Right.
And so
right.
to use your analogy, you stub your toe, hit your thumb with a hammer, that's a condition that you created.
Exactly.
And the body is any condition you think you have is a condition that you created.
And
cancer
so
didn't show up.
Let's amplify that a bit. Diabetes is a condition you give yourself, except for type 1 diabetes, which you're born with, of course. So type 2 diabetes, which is what most adults have, is something you do to yourself as a consequence of two things: what you eat and what you don't eat. It is not a disease. It's a condition, correct?
Like all conditions. It's a consequence of how you live your life, what you eat and drink, how you breathe and exercise and rest, what your primary thoughts are. The body responds perfectly to that. And as a result, this is what you get. But the medical profession will have you think your body is doing something wrong. It can't. It's incapable of responding differently. And again, I use the analogy of a simple cut. If you happen to accidentally cut yourself, the first thing you do is stop the bleeding, clean it up, put some antibiotic ointment on it maybe to keep it from getting infected, then you cover it. And then you give no more thought to the healing, the sealing of that wound, and it's done. In 4 weeks, if you're a youngster, it's done. In 8 to 12 weeks, if you're 80, it's done. No matter what, it will automatically, by itself, without any conscious thought from you, seal that wound, because your survival system knows that if the bacteria that's outside on the ground or inside your house on the floor, if that bacteria gets inside here, we got a whole bunch more work to do. So it will seal that breach of the skin as fast as it can in order to not have any other more complications. Well, conditions are the same way. And this time of the year that we're in, we're eating everything, more sweets, more this, more that, more stress. It's just, I don't know why people still do it. I would rather have this much fun all year round. You know, pick a day out of the month and get together with family and friends and have fun. Exchange gifts in July, or, you know, just give a gift for no reason. It's played up to a major economic event, and the Thanksgiving. In my book, every day is Thanksgiving. My son, when he was 9 years old, he asked me, he said, "Dad, why isn't every day a holiday with a paid vacation?" And I just looked at him and said, "Son, that's a great idea. How about you start working on it now? Because I haven't figured it out yet."
The logic of a child. I like that.
Yes, indeed. The words of wisdom from a babe. You better listen. But yes, when you have a thought, and especially this time of year, see, eating is a parasympathetic event. And this time of year, we eat a lot of stuff that's not good for us. If I would show up at a holiday meal, you think I would eat? Of course. Yes, I would. I love eating. But here's how I would do it. I would eat all the turkey or the chicken that I wanted for that meal first. And then go back and do the greens and the sweet potatoes and the dressing and the green beans and the macaroni and cheese. And I would eat that after I've finished eating my protein.
And the reason for doing that is?
The reason for doing it is there's two types of enzymes, one to digest starch and the other to digest protein. Two different enzymes. Protein enzyme can digest starch. Starch enzyme takes a long time to break down protein. And so when you eat, typically people will eat bread first. They will eat bread first, and as soon as you do that, your digestive system, especially the one that breaks down and assimilates carbohydrates, it starts in the mouth. It starts in the mouth. You take a piece of a roll and put it in your mouth, just let it sit there in about a couple minutes, and you don't have to chew it. You can just swallow it because there's an enzyme that's secreted by the salivary glands called ptyalin. And ptyalin breaks down carbohydrates in the mouth, and the stomach's going, oh, yeah, I don't have to do much work, do I? Mm-hmm. So when it gets into the stomach, it's got carbohydrate enzyme, and boom, it's broken down really fast, sends it to the small intestine. Boom, it does its job, send it to the large intestine. It extracts minerals and B12, and it's done. It's done really fast because the body would rather use less energy to metabolize food, and the only reason why we eat food is for fuel. Raw materials to rebuild, repair, replace, rejuvenate. We need fuel. Those raw materials are vitamins and minerals. More importantly, minerals than vitamins. And so when you start off your digestion with a starch, it's hard, difficult, if not impossible, to tell your stomach to reverse the process and start producing protein enzymes. So as a consequence, you get semi-digested, undigested protein that leaves the stomach. Remember I said that it would take a lot of digestive enzyme to break down protein? Well, that's a lot of time, too. Right, a lot of enzyme, a lot of time. And your digestive system doesn't work that slow.
Well, so Doctor, I need to interrupt you. Would it be wise, let's say we got that turkey in front of us and then all these other sides, to eat the meat like you suggested? Would it be wise to take a break of several minutes before starting to consume these other items?
It could be. Yeah, you can take a break, have a conversation. You don't necessarily have to, though, because once the body knows that, and protein is fuel, but it's long-burning fuel. Like if you have a bonfire and you want to pep up the bonfire, what you do is you ball up a bunch of newspapers and stuff and throw it on the bonfire, and you get instant heat increase, but then it's gone. But if you took that oak log and put it on the fire, take it a while to catch, but it'll burn for another couple hours. That's protein. The poof with the intense heat for just a second, that's carbohydrate. And so the body prefers low expenditure of energy for high return. That's carbohydrate. And so just sit there, and of course we know turkey has tryptophan, and again, digestion is a parasympathetic process. That's why it's normal and natural for you to want to relax and lay down after a meal. However, it's best that you get up and walk for a few minutes and then relax. And so with that being said, sure, you can eat whatever meat you want and then follow up with green vegetables or green beans, that green bean, an almond salad. Oh, my goodness, I'm getting hungry. And then make the carbohydrate, the cakes, the dressing, the pies, the sugar, make that last on your list. Last on your list. That's called proper protocol for digestion. And I have internal dinners for my clients, maybe once or twice a year, where I have my current clients invite someone they know that would benefit from what I do, and I have a dinner. They listen to me for an hour, and then they get to eat. And so one of my clients goes, Dr. Robert, we're not supposed to be eating protein and starch. I said, well, yeah, typically that's not the way to do it. What I do is I eat all my meat first, And I start with the vegetables, and I make the starch last. She said, oh, well, yeah. I'm not going to turn down rice pilaf.
Right.
I just put it last on my list.
Right.
So it's true for everybody. It's true for everybody. The digestive system is just that. Anatomy doesn't change. Physiology, open to interpretation, depends on who you talk to. But the anatomy of the digestive tract doesn't change. And once you study the physiology and know the anatomy, then you can make adaptive changes that's going to benefit you as opposed to create conditions down the road. Diabetes is one of the most preventable, like all conditions. Heart attack, if you knew what to do, you would do it. If you knew how devastating an emotional thought, feeling, and less than positive thought, feeling, and emotion, if you know how devastating it was, you spend this moment and the rest of your life learning how not to allow yourself to become upset. And that's pretty much where I am in my life. I share what I live with my clients, and they get to choose how much of it. Well, I don't share everything I do because they look at me sideways. But I share most of my lifestyle patterns because I didn't get here by accident. I was a very sickly child, or so they told me. And when I graduated from high school at 18, I was still having asthmatic conditions, and my resolve at that point was there were two. One, I had a government job downtown, so I don't never have to go to school again. And number two, my intention is to get healthy. And I read a book written by Dr. Earl Mendel. Some of you may have heard of him. He's been around for a long time. He's a pharmacist, and he has a master's in clinical nutrition. And he wrote a book called The Vitamin Bible.
There you go.
Vitamin Bible.
Hold that thought, Doctor. We are our last break. We'll be right back.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcast. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here on Friday, the 15th of November. If you'd like to be a client of Dr. Wilbert, well, just give him a call. Real simple, just give him a call. That would be during business hours, Central Time, Monday through Friday, 314-4905-6480. Doctor, we've got about 3 minutes here, sir.
Alrighty. I mentioned the Vitamin Bible. Changed my life. I was 18 years old. The basic premise, and he gives you the reasons why. The basic premise is, if you give your body the raw materials, vitamins and minerals again being more important. If you didn't have minerals, you couldn't use vitamins. Give yourself the raw materials for healing, you can heal from any condition. And I took it to heart. And by the time I was in my early 20s, I was riding my bicycle 50 miles a day. I was running 3.5 miles every other day. I started martial arts. My physical health had turned around. And oh, by the way, the funds for my job that I thought I had for the government, it went away. So now I got to find another job. So I had to go back to school. So that changed too. But
Right.
again, it allowed me to catapult in the direction that I wanted to go. The other thing I wanted to mention of, I started earlier, Dr. Alan Watkins, Watkins. He hooks a volunteer that was supposed to be good in math from the crowd, hooks him up to a heart rate variability machine, and says, okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to count backwards from 100 by threes. And sure, no problem. And he starts counting 100, 97, 94, and Dr. Watkins started throwing random numbers out. 24, 66, just random numbers. And you could see on this big screen on stage that his normal pattern of heart rate variability just went through the roof. Just went.
So the audience can see the monitor while this is taking place?
Yes. There's a giant screen on stage. And he says, this is why when you get emotionally upset, you can't think straight. And to further that, the discord between brain and body becomes severely compromised. And it is a do-it-yourself frontal lobotomy. And just think about how long it takes you to recover from emotional upsetness. You can't think straight. Your frontal lobe is responsible for cognitive, conscious thinking. And when you're emotionally upset, you're taking minutes off your life. We haven't determined what that is yet, but humans were not designed to have emotional upsetness of any kind. No other creature can choose to be emotionally upset. Their life may be threatened, and you think they're mad and upset, or you may be encroaching on their environment, and those geese will chase you just as fast as you can get away from their nest, but they don't get upset. Only humans get upset. And getting up the emotional upsetness is the fastest way that you can shorten your life. Guaranteed.
Absolutely. Doctor, that's a great place to end today. We appreciate you having with us, and we'll have you back next Friday.
Yes, we will. Thank you, J.R.
Thank you, Doctor. That's it. That's it for the day. That's it for the week. Get your medical supplies, your energy cleaning, your essential oils now while you can, your firearms and ammunition. Never, ever give up your guns. Please do have a fun, safe, productive day and weekend. And God bless America.